There was a version of me that believed being good would be enough. He believed that if he showed up, if he stayed patient, if he loved honestly, things would eventually make sense. He thought effort guaranteed safety. He thought kindness protected you. He thought people noticed sacrifice. That version of me is gone. Not because he was weak, but because the world demanded more than he could give without losing himself. No one warned him that being good comes with a cost. No one explained that loyalty, when unreturned, becomes a burden. No one tells you that empathy, without boundaries, turns into self-betrayal. So he kept giving, kept understanding, kept explaining himself to people who were never listening. And slowly, quietly, he disappeared. There was no explosion, no dramatic ending, just a series of moments where he realized too late that he was being shaped into something small. This is not a story about becoming evil. It's a story about becoming aware. About the moment you realize that survival sometimes looks like coldness, that peace sometimes requires distance, and that choosing yourself will offend people who benefited from your silence. The version of me that died believed love meant endurance. The man speaking now knows better. If you're listening to this, you may recognize parts of yourself here. The late nights, the quiet exhaustion, the feeling that you gave too much for too long. This story is for the version of you that didn't survive who you became, and for the one that did. Ethan Holloway was the kind of man people trusted immediately. Not because he was strong, not because he was loud, but because he was predictable. You always knew Ethan meant well. At 34, Ethan worked as a senior analyst at a consulting firm called Harrington Group. On paper, he was respected. In reality, he had another title, one nobody said out loud, the reliable one. If a coworker needed someone to stay late, Ethan stayed. If his younger sister Clara needed money for yet another business idea, Ethan sent it. If his girlfriend Naomi had one of her heavy days, Ethan listened for hours until her sadness became his. He believed in fairness, in kindness, in doing the right thing even when it was hard. He believed that if you gave enough, life would notice. It didn't. It happened on a Tuesday. Gray sky, cold rain, terrible coffee. Ethan sat across from Richard Lane, the managing director. Richard looked expensive, tailored suit, calm smile, no warmth behind the eyes. The merger went through, Richard said casually. We're cutting 12 people from logistics. I want you to handle the exit meetings. Ethan blinked. 12? Some of them have been here for years. Is there another option? Richard finally looked up. He smiled slightly. Ethan, this is why I chose you. You're good with people. You'll make it easier for them. Easier? Ethan said quietly. Richard leaned back. You'll soften the blow. Hold their hands. Walk them out gently. That's your strength. Ethan understood then. His kindness wasn't respected. It was useful. That night he went home exhausted. Naomi was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I have to let 12 people go tomorrow, Ethan said. I don't even know how I'm supposed to sleep. That's awful, she said, still scrolling. Then, without looking up, did you pick up my dress from the cleaners? I need it for Friday. Ethan stared at her. No, he said. She froze, looked up. What do you mean no? You said you would. I didn't go. Well, can you go now? They close soon. Something inside him shifted. No, he said calmly. I'm not going. Naomi sat up. Ethan, what is wrong with you today? He thought about the people he'd fire tomorrow, about the money he kept giving his sister, about how he always listened, always fixed things, always carried everyone else's weight. I'm tired, and I'm done being the only one who shows up. She laughed nervously. You're acting strange. You're being really unfair. Maybe. But for the first time, he didn't feel guilty. He walked into the bedroom and closed the door. No slam, no drama, just silence. And in that silence, Ethan realized something that scared him. He didn't feel bad. He felt empty. And that emptiness felt like freedom. The next day at work felt different. Not louder, not dramatic, heavier. Ethan sat across from people he had known for years, men and women who trusted him. Some cried, some argued, some stared at him like he had personally ruined their lives. Before, Ethan would have apologized. He would have explained. He would have tried to comfort them. Today, he didn't. He listened. He stayed quiet. He noticed something new. They weren't looking for mercy. They were looking for a crack, a soft place they could push through. "Ethan, please," said Michael, his voice shaking. "You know me. I've given everything to this place. Can't you talk to Richard?" Ethan looked at him carefully. He saw himself in Michael. The need to be seen as loyal, the belief that being good would save him. "I already spoke to him," Ethan said evenly. "The decision won't change. Please sign the papers." Michael's face hardened. "How can you be so cold? I thought we were friends." "We worked together," Ethan replied calmly. "That's not the same thing." Michael signed, left without another word. Ethan felt nothing. No pride, no guilt, just stillness. And in that quiet, he realized something uncomfortable. His old kindness wasn't courage, it was avoidance. He had softened pain before because he couldn't stand sitting with it. Now he could. The real test came that weekend. His phone rang. It was his sister. "Ethan, I need your help," Clara said quickly. "I need $20,000. The studio is behind on rent, and if I don't pay, they'll take everything. I'll pay you back by Christmas." It was the fourth Christmas promise. "No," Ethan said. Silence. "What?" "I can't do it anymore," he said. "I've already given you more than I can count. It hasn't changed anything." "You're my brother," she snapped. "You're supposed to help me. You're the responsible one. Mom always said so." "That role is costing me my peace," Ethan said. "I'm stepping down." "You're being selfish. I know you have the money." "I do," he said, looking at his reflection in the window. His posture was different, straighter. "And I'm keeping it." He ended the call. Within an hour, the phone rang again. His mother, then his cousin, then Naomi. Different voices, same message. "You've changed. You're not the same. You're becoming cold." What they meant was simpler. You're no longer useful. That evening, Naomi stood in front of him in the living room, a wine glass shaking in her hand. "Everyone is worried about you," she said. "You're becoming wicked." Ethan looked up from the book in his hands. "Is it wicked to say no?" he asked calmly. "Or is it wicked to expect yes every time?" "You're supposed to care," she yelled. "You're supposed to love us." "I loved you by disappearing," Ethan said quietly. "I'm done doing that." Her voice dropped. "I can't stay with someone like this." She waited. For panic. For begging. For fear. Ethan turned a page. "The suitcases are in the closet. Do you need help, or can you manage?" She stared at him like he'd struck her. Then she left. When the door closed, the apartment felt bigger. The silence felt clean. And somewhere, deep inside him, the people-pleaser took his last breath. Change didn't happen overnight. There was no big moment, no dramatic speech, no sudden confidence. It happened slowly, deliberately. Ethan began to watch people the way a scientist watches behavior, without emotion, without attachment. He noticed patterns, how people expected loyalty to come with sacrifice, how being good often meant being uncomfortable, how suffering had become proof of character. If you said no, you were selfish. If you said yes, you were kind. It was a tax, and he had been overpaying for years. At work, Richard tested him. "Ethan," he said one afternoon, leaning casually against the doorframe, "I need you to take over the West Coast accounts. A lot of travel, 3 weeks out of every month." Ethan waited. "No raise," Richard added quickly, "but it puts you in line for partnership next year." Before, Ethan would have smiled, said yes, found a way. Now, he didn't rush. "No," he said calmly. Richard frowned. "What?" "I won't be doing that." There was a pause. "You realize this is how people move up," Richard said. "You don't want to stall your career." "If you want the West Coast handled by me, my salary goes up 40%, and I want the title now, not later." Richard laughed, sharp and short. "Careful, you're replaceable." Ethan stood up. "Then replace me," he said evenly. "But we both know I'm the only one who understands the Sterling accounts completely, and I'm the only one the board trusts to explain them." He checked his watch. "You have 10 minutes, he added. "I'm stepping out." He didn't feel nervous as he walked away. He felt calm. For the first time in his career, he understood something clearly. Power comes from being willing to leave. Ethan didn't go to the coffee machine. He went to the rooftop. The city stretched out below him. For most of his life, he had lived by shoulds. I should help. I should sacrifice. I should be understanding. He saw it now for what it was. A leash. Power didn't speak in shoulds. Power spoke in decisions. Richard appeared 5 minutes later, irritated and tense. "Fine," he said, 30% raise. Vice President title, announcement next week. 40, Ethan said calmly, still facing the skyline. "And the announcement is today." Silence. Then a tight laugh. "You've changed, Ethan. You used to be nice." "I was afraid. That's not the same thing." Richard's voice dropped. "Don't mistake confidence for control." Ethan finally turned around. "I know every detail of the Sterling merger," he said quietly. "I know what you hid, who you paid, and where the numbers don't line up. I've been protecting this firm for years without realizing it." The smile faded from Richard's face. "I'm not threatening you," Ethan continued. "I'm just done being small." The air shifted. "Welcome to the top," Richard muttered. Ethan shook his head slightly. "I'm not at the top. I'm just no longer beneath anyone." Months passed. Ethan's life became quiet, deliberately so. He stopped calling family, not out of anger, out of clarity. He realized most of his relationships had been contracts he never agreed to. They stayed as long as he paid, in money, time, emotion, patience. Once the payment stopped, so did the love. He stopped dating, stopped explaining himself, stopped trying to be understood. He moved into a smaller apartment, higher up, cleaner, sharper. Dark wood, minimal furniture, long stretches of silence. It suited him. One evening, there was a knock at the door. Ethan already knew who it was. Clara stood there, thinner than he remembered, tired, defeated. Her business had finally collapsed. "I don't have anywhere to go," she said, her voice breaking. "They're suing me. I might lose everything." Ethan didn't invite her inside. He didn't feel guilt. He felt recognition. "You had $60,000 of my money," he said calmly. "Where is it?" She looked away. "I had debts. I had to survive." "You survived on my labor," Ethan replied. "That was a choice." "I'm your sister," she cried. "How can you do this to me?" "That makes us related, not obligated." Her face twisted. "You're cruel." "No," Ethan said. "I'm fair. And fairness feels cruel to people who are used to free access." "I'll tell everyone what you've become," she snapped. "I'll tell them you turned your back on family." He nodded slightly. "They already think that, and it doesn't affect my sleep." Closed the door. He didn't listen to the pounding, didn't listen to the crying. He poured a drink, sat down, breathed. The phone rang. A new number. Naomi. "I heard about Clara," she said quietly. "Is it true you didn't help her?" "Yes." There was a pause. "You're not the man I loved," she said. "You've changed. You're wicked." Ethan smiled faintly. "My heart hasn't disappeared," he said. "It's just not available to everyone anymore." "You've locked everyone out," she said. "You'll be alone." "We all end alone," Ethan replied calmly. "Most people just avoid realizing it. I didn't." He ended the call, blocked the number. The room returned to silence, and for the first time in his life, that silence felt earned. A new identity. There was no redemption arc, no moment where Ethan returned to who he used to be. No regret, no apology tour. That man was gone. Instead, Ethan became something else. In his industry, people spoke his name carefully, not loudly, not casually. They called him the ice pick, not because he was cruel, but because he was precise. Ethan never raised his voice, never argued, never threatened. He stated his terms, and if those terms weren't met, he walked away. That was enough. His relationships changed too. No more emotional debts, no more silent expectations. The people around him now were sharp, capable, clear. They didn't ask for favors. They treated value. They didn't demand loyalty. They earned respect. And strangely, those connections felt lighter than anything he'd had before. One evening, Ethan attended a private industry gala. He stood on a balcony, drink in hand, watching people below. The smiles were loud. The laughter was forced. He spotted the familiar type immediately. The good ones. Hovering, apologizing, trying to be liked. Nearby, a senior executive was speaking sharply to a young associate. The kid stood stiff, nodding too fast. "I'm sorry," the young man said. "I should have caught it sooner." Ethan stepped closer. "Why are you apologizing?" he asked. The young man froze. The numbers changed. I thought." "Then you didn't make a mistake," Ethan said calmly. The senior executive stiffened. "Everything all right here?" Ethan didn't look at him. "You're apologizing to feel safe," Ethan said to the young man. "That doesn't make you good. It makes you visible." The executive scoffed. "Now just wait." Ethan turned his eyes to him. Nothing dramatic, just stillness. The executive stopped talking. Ethan looked back at the young man. "Go home," he said. "Be at my office tomorrow at 8. If you can learn to stop saying sorry for existing, I might have work for you." The young man nodded and walked away, stunned. The executive muttered, "You're turning them into people like you." "No," Ethan said. "I'm teaching them how to survive." Later that night, Ethan stood alone again, looking out at the city. He thought about his old life, the constant guilt, the endless giving, the quiet resentment. It felt distant now, unreal. He wasn't evil. He didn't enjoy hurting people. He simply refused to disappear anymore. His heart still worked. It just wasn't open to everyone. He had built walls, put gates on them, and decided, carefully, who entered. The transformation was complete, irreversible. Ethan lifted his glass. The ice clinked softly, clear, sharp. He was wicked, and for the first time in his life, He was free. If this story stayed with you, you may want to hear the next one. Subscribe and meet me here again.